70,000 years ago, prehistoric humans thought of an ingenious idea. Instead of running up to poke an animal with a pointy stick until it died, they instead got a pointy stick, a flexible stick, and some animal sinew, combined them, and made the world's first ever bow. 60,000 years later, around 200 BCE in China, the Chinese would come up with the crossbow, basically the bow, but cooler. About 2,000 years later, this bald man would make a video game that would change the lives of millions. He'd add the bow in 2010, and nearly a decade later, the crossbow would get added to the same game. This brought the ancient debate of bow versus crossbow into the world of Minecraft. Now I'm here to answer the question, which is better, both in Minecraft and in a historical setting? This is History in Minecraft Episode 1, the bow versus the crossbow. Okay, first starting off with the bow. To clarify how I'm going to do this, I'll explain the bow's in-game features, then I'll explain its uses in the real world with historical examples. Bows are cheap to craft, with their recipe requiring 3 string and 3 sticks. They can also be bought or dropped after defeating skeleton-type mobs. To fire the bow, you'll need to charge it up. A bow takes 1 second to fully charge and has 3 distinct tiers. Tier 1, where there's no charge time and the bow does 1 damage. Tier 2, where charging the bow from 0.2 to 0.9 seconds does 5 damage. And finally, Tier 3, where you fully charge it for 1 second and it does 6 damage. The distance the arrow is fired is affected by the player's momentum and the amount of time it has been charged for. Now the damage on a bow varies since bows can crit. Unlike critical hits with melee weapons, they aren't reliant on you falling but are instead random with about a 25% chance of happening. Power. It's a simple damage increase to a max of 12.5 hearts with critical hits.
That's a lot of damage!
To put that into perspective, that's enough to 2-shot a piglin brute if you're lucky enough to get 2 crits in a row. Punch. This increases your bow's knockback. But unlike the knockback enchantment, it's actually useful since you want your enemies usually to be farther away from you. Flame. It sets your arrows on fire. It's like fire aspect, but for your bows. Infinity. Infinity gives you an infinite number of arrows, but it doesn't work with tipped arrows or spectral arrows, and it doesn't combine with mending. And then finally, you have mending and unbreaking, which I don't need to explain. Now, when would we use the bow historically? Well, it was used quite effectively by the English during the 100 Years' War. It's the start of the 100 Years' War between England and France, which actually lasted 116 years, but whatever. It began when King Edward III of England had the last of his French lands taken from him. So he does the reasonable thing and declares himself the King of France. The other King of France, Philip VI, denied this claim. So the stage is set for the beginning in 1337. Since raising armies took a while back then, nothing really happens until 1340 and blah blah blah. Edward goes on a few campaigns and nothing too crazy happens, right? Until 1346, where Edward faces a far larger army near the village of Crécy. The English landed in Normandy and marched south, looting and pillaging every city they came across, and even making it extremely close to Paris. Eventually, Philip sent a challenge to Edward, suggesting that the armies do battle at a mutually agreed time and place. Edward proceeded to say he would meet up with the French, then never showed up, burnt down the village of Poissy, and destroyed its bridge so the French couldn't cross after them. August 26, 1346. The English are outnumbered and tired. They have been marching for days, and the Flemish reinforcements that were supposed to arrive to help never came. The English choose the ground carefully. They wait, anticipating a French attack. Before the battle begins, they prepare for the upcoming French assault. English soldiers dig shallow pits and longbowmen plant stakes in the mud. The French arrive. Confident in their numbers and their knights, the French attack without order. I mean, it was surely an easy victory. Some estimates say the French had upwards of 2 to 3 times the number of troops the English did. The French army consisted mainly of cavalry, men-at-arms, and Genoese crossbowmen, mercenaries from Italy, whereas the English army was mainly longbowmen, dismounted men-at-arms, and spearmen. On the French side, Genoese crossbowmen move to the front and fire, but due to the pouring rain, the Genoese fire weak, short volleys. The rain has soaked the crossbow string, and the English longbows fire faster, farther, and deadlier. English arrows fall like a storm, and the Genoese break and retreat. The French then launch a charge. In confusion, French knights ride down their own men and press on. But because of the muddy terrain and the volleys of arrows, the French knights couldn't advance. The field is littered with bodies. French charges continue again and again, each one failing. The few French who do manage to get to the English line are halted by the stakes the English placed in the mud and promptly cut down. By nightfall, the French army is shattered. Knights, princes, and nobles all lie dead. The English have lost few, while the French have lost thousands. Cressy changes warfare forever. The age of the armored knight begins to fade, brought down by discipline, terrain, and the longbow. My, that was a rather crazy defeat for the French. Hopefully they don't fall for that trick again, because, that would be impossible, right? Losing your army in the exact same way, to the exact same enemy, using the exact same army composition, under the exact same circumstance. Battle of Agincourt. Basically, the same thing happened. Henry V, the English king, had a smaller force, but by luring the French into a field of mud, then ambushing the French with archers in the nearby forest, they managed to defeat the much larger French force, showing again the dominance of the longbow. So obviously that shows that bows were superior, right? I mean, they beat the French crossbowmen twice, so they must be better, right? Not necessarily. Just because the bow beats the crossbow in some fields doesn't make the bow's younger brother a bad weapon by any means. Actually, it's an extremely good weapon, so let's take a look at it. The crossbow in Minecraft can be a very powerful ranged weapon, but how does it compare to the bow? In keeping with historical fashion, crossbows are way more costly to make than your regular bows. To craft them, you need 2 string, 3 sticks, iron, and a tripwire hook. For some reason. Alternatively, like the bow, it can be bought or can be dropped from killing pillagers or piglins and can be found in bastions and outposts. What makes the crossbow unique from the bow is that while it takes longer to load, when loaded, the arrow stays in the crossbow. The crossbow takes 1 1/4 or 1.25 seconds to reload. The crossbow deals between 7 and 11 damage on Java and a consistent 9 damage on Bedrock. Quick charge. It makes your crossbow charge faster. To be precise, 0.25 seconds for each level. At level 3, a crossbow actually fires faster than a bow. Multi-shot. It makes you shoot 3 arrows for the price of 1, but it can't stack with piercing. It allows your crossbow arrows to go through multiple enemies. Also, arrows shot from crossbows with the piercing enchantment ignore shields. And also mending and unbreaking and blah blah blah. Let's see how this weapon would be useful in history. The Battle of Jaffa. The sun rises over the coastal city of Jaffa. Crusader banners hang battered over the walls. Inside, the garrison is thin and exhausted. 1192. The Third Crusade nears its end. Jerusalem remains in Muslim hands, but the port of Jaffa is key to controlling the coast. Richard the Lionheart, commander of the Crusader forces, needed the control of many important coastal cities so that his army could have the supplies and troops needed to take Jerusalem. Saladin, the Muslim Sultan, knows this, and while Richard is away, his army surrounds Jaffa. If Saladin could take Jaffa, he would destroy the Crusaders' chance at retaking the holy city. July 27, siege engines pound the walls, and after 3 days, Muslim troops surge through a breach. Saladin seizes the moment, and his forces overwhelm the city, pushing the Crusaders back to the citadel by the sea. Richard received word of the siege and musters his troops as fast as he can, and races towards the city. August 1st, 1192. The Crusaders see ships on the horizon, with English banners flying in the wind. Richard the Lionheart, the Crusader king, arrives with a small force, far fewer than Saladin's army. To prove that he deserved his title, Richard leaps off his ship into the water, armor on, sword in one hand and crossbow in the other. Richard leads a sudden charge from the beach. Inspired by their king's bravery, the men under his command follow. Crossbowmen fire and knights press forward. The attack is bold, reckless, and perfectly timed. Saladin's troops, scattered from looting the city, are caught off guard. The Muslim forces fall back and Jaffa is retaken. Days later, Saladin launches a massive cavalry attack on Richard's camp. Outnumbered, Richard forms his men into tight defensive lines, spears, shields, and discipline against waves of horsemen. He instructs his crossbowmen to fire in volleys, so that while one group is reloading, another is firing. This ensures a constant rain of arrows heading towards Saladin's cavalry. Saladin watches from a hill as the attack falters. Though neither side can claim total victory, through a combination of boldness and the trusty crossbow, Richard has held Jaffa. Afterwards, Richard and Saladin's envoys meet, and a few weeks later, the Treaty of Jaffa is signed. Jerusalem remains under Muslim control, but Christian pilgrims are allowed safe passage. The Third Crusade ends, not with conquest, but a compromise. So we've seen how powerful both weapons can be when used properly, but to answer the question, which is better? It honestly depends. I know that's a really lame answer, but really, while both do have optimal use cases, in the end, they're really both solid and viable ranged weapons that coexisted for centuries rather than having one be better than the other. Now, tell me in the comments, which one do you prefer though? Thank you so much for watching. As you can see by my upload schedule, these videos take a while to make since I'm the one doing all the builds, the research, the editing, the voice. Like literally the entire video is just me, so it takes a lot of work to make these. I would really appreciate it if you click the subscribe button. I would be so grateful for you. Anyways, thank you even if you just watched to the end. Like really from the bottom of my heart, thank you.